Well, we won't be live on channel 28 until 6. The city's broadcasting, but we won't be live on 28 till 6. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, how are you?
Good. And my dog is better too. She decided she liked jigsaw puzzle parts.
Ooh. Ooh.
Mm.
Ooh. How many did we ingest?
Well, we've been doing about one a month, since this whole thing started, leave it out on the table and come by and put some pieces in.
One piece a month or one puzzle?
one puzzle. And we had it out on the table, and there was some along the edge of the table, oh, these are all the same color. They've got to go together, right? Now, both of us were away for a while, and she scarfed those 30 pieces. Yum, yum. Up to the vet we go.
Surgery?
No, they didn't seem to be, the vet seemed satisfied that they weren't clumping up or anything. Just, watch her, make sure she drinks plenty of water and la da 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 da. Okay. So, no more jigsaw puzzles.
It could have been socks.
Yeah.
It could have been socks.
Yes.
My lab, he swallowed. The vet said surgery. So surgery it was, and he took out 10 socks. Yes.
Well, at least you know where your random socks had been disappearing too, right? Yeah. The dryer wasn't eating them, your dog was. Oh. Let's see. Marika, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Hey, Marika, did you get through all 3,000 pages? I will honestly admit I did not read every appendix. I only read 2 appendices. I read the rest of it, but I only read 2 of the appendices.
John, I was going to say something about that your vet was probably puzzled by the symptoms, but I won't do that.
Oh. There used to be an assistant public works director of Napa, Larry Pollard, who loved puns like that. You'd be in a meeting with Larry and he'd crack out 1 or 2 of them.
Chair Pont, I'd like to let you know it's 6 o'clock.
Okay.
We can begin the meeting now.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to the St. Helena Planning Commission meeting of November 2nd, 2021. There's a paragraph I need to read first before we get started. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of Government Code Section 54-953 as amended by AB 361, which authorizes teleconference meetings under the Brown Act during certain proclaimed states of emergency. The Governor of California proclaimed a state of emergency related to COVID-19 on March 4th, 2020. This teleconference meeting is necessary so that the city can conduct essential businesses and is permitted under Government Code Section 54-953 in order to protect public health and safety of attendees. Consistent with Government Code Section 54-953, this Planning Commission meeting will be held via teleconference only and will not be physically open to the public. Commission members and staff will be teleconferenced into the meeting by audio and/or video. The meeting will be conducted via Zoom webinar. Ms. Gamero, do you have anything more for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pont. I will be sharing my screen here. Okay. Perfect. Members of the public that wish to participate in public comments can do so by phone by dialing 669-900-6833. At the prompt, you may enter the meeting ID 845-1730-1810, press pound, and during public comments, press *9 to speak. Additionally, tonight's meeting will have live Spanish interpretation. To access the interpretation, you will need to use the Zoom application from either your phone, tablet, or computer. Instructions on how to use the Zoom app are listed in English and Spanish on the agenda posted on the city's website. Once you join the meeting from the Zoom application, you will see a small globe at the bottom or top of the screen. You can click the globe and you'll be able to access the live interpretation. We have Marcy and Claudia who are the interpreters for this meeting. And that will be all, Chair Pont.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hale, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Surely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Secretary Gamero, will you take the roll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Segura,
Here.
Commissioner Rothfeld, here, Vice Chair Hale,
Here.
and Chair Pont.
Here, thank you. That takes us to item 3, which is the public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the commission may not engage in discussion nor take action on matters not described on the agenda. Please observe the time limit of 4 minutes. Ms. Gamero, is there anybody who seems to wish to speak under public comment?
Yes, Chair Pont. It looks like we have Nancy Durbin who would like to speak at the moment. Nancy, let me unmute you here. And I believe you're able to speak now.
Good evening. I would like to make a request. Since this is a public meeting, would you guys be so kind as to tell us how many people are logged in to view the meeting? So even though, I mean, we don't know who they are, but it would be nice to know how well attended the Zoom meetings are.
Is that even possible, Ms. Gamero?
I am able to see the number of attendees, and I believe I'm able to disclose that information. And it's 25 attendees at the moment.
Thank you very much. It would be great if we could get updated if that number changes at some point, you know, if it goes up significantly by like 5 or more, or people drop off, just to get a sense for how much involvement from the community there is. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you. Ms. Gamero, is there anyone else who wishes to speak under public comment? You're on mute.
I apologize. We have Angela, I'm sorry, Zivkovic. And you are unmuted now.
Hi, good evening. My name is Angela Zivkovic, and I'm a resident of St. Helena. I've been reading through the Hunter Project Development EIR, and I realized that there is a public comment period that is open until November 8th. I'm wondering if it would be possible to advertise this more broadly, because I don't feel like very many people are aware of this public comment period that's open. And I would also like to express concern about the project in general. And
Ms. Zagovic,
yeah,
this item actually is on the agenda.
Oh, it is.
This is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. So I need to ask you to hold your comment until we actually get down to the item of concern.
okay, will do.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, Ms. Gamero?
Yes, we have Tracy McBride who's raised her hand. And you have been unmuted, Tracy.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much. Could you please review the process for making a public comment? I have not made a public comment in a Zoom commission meeting before. You had the instructions for the phone public comment, but I'd like the instructions for the Zoom public comment. And then just as a side note, because I don't know all of you, just for future reference, it'd be really awesome if the commissioners could put commissioner in front of their names and the city employees could state their roles on their names on the screen so that I can understand your roles. Thank you so much.
We will certainly take that new advisement for the future, ma'am, but I don't think we can backtrack at the present time.
Understood.
Ms. Gamero, would you please direct her to where she could pick up the Zoom link on the city agenda?
She is logged into the Zoom meeting. Sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what her question is, but during public comments, during the public hearing item, which is 5.1, Chair Pont will open up the public hearing, and just like you did now, you'll be able to raise your hand, and I'll be going down the list and calling on your name, and that's how you can provide public comment for the specific item.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
Great. Thank you so much. Yes.
Is there anyone else, Ms. Gamero?
Give me 1 second, Chair Pont.
Thank you.
I do not see anybody else raising their hand at the moment.
All right. That takes us to item 4, which is consent item. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of considering alternative actions for extended discussion or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. We only have one item tonight. That's the minutes of October 19th, 2021. Is there any members of the commission that wish to pull that item for further consideration? I do not see any. Secretary Gamero, is there anyone online who wishes to have that item pulled for further discussion?
I do not see any raised hands, Chair Pont.
Okay, thank you. Then a motion from the commission would be in order, if someone cares to make one. Commissioner Anderson. You're on mute. Autumn. You're still on mute.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Segura. Ms. Gamero, will you tally the votes, please?
Commissioner Anderson? You're on mute.
Yes.
Commissioner Segura?
Yes.
Commissioner Rothfeld?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hale?
Yes.
And Chair Pont?
Yes, thank you. That takes us to the public hearing for this evening, 5.1, which is receiving comments on the draft environmental impact report for the Hunter Subdivision project. This may take us a while to get through, but I want to make it clear that that's all we're doing. We're not acting on the environmental tonight. We're not acting on the subdivision tonight. We're making no recommendations to the city council on either one of those items. All we're doing is recording and listening to comments from the public on the draft environmental impact report.
Additionally,
Director
Chair
DeRosa.
Pont, I apologize. There's an announcement I'd like to make. Any public comments that was emailed or received after 3 p.m. this afternoon will be added to the agenda tomorrow morning. So you will not see that on the Planning Commission agenda for tonight's evening.
Thank you. Director DeRosa, do you want to introduce this for us, please?
Certainly, thank you. We have the city's project manager, Eric Norris here. We'll give a brief presentation and then open it up for public comment. So Eric, you can go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Maya. I'm going to turn my camera off here briefly and we'll get our show going. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you very much for being here tonight. I'm going to give a brief PowerPoint show, just a little bit of overview about the project itself. I think the chairman has already mentioned this is not an evening at which decisions will be made or recommendations made. It's also not a meeting where we will respond to comments. Tonight's meeting is all about getting comments from the public. So let's talk a little bit about the project. So what we're talking about is a project called the Hunter Subdivision. It's a subdivision map, a tentative subdivision map at the end of Adams Street and Star Avenue. Aerial photograph here shows where it is. Hunt Avenue also provides primary access to the site. It's about a 17-acre parcel, and they're proposing a total of 87 dwelling units on that land. This is what we call the tentative map. This is the kind of map that creates single-family lots that most of our homes sit on, or larger lots that apartments sit on. This is a very normal part of a development process when someone is planning to build a residential project, is to first of all subdivide the land into lots, and that's what they've proposed to do here. The map shows the arrangement of lots, the locations of streets, emergency access, some parcels on which houses won't be placed, but other things will happen, and so on. So again, just really briefly, the project is just under 17 acres. they're proposing 87 dwelling units. Now we've broken that down. It's 51 single-family homes, 25 multifamily homes on one of the larger parcels, and then 11 accessory dwelling units. And those are the second units or the granny flats that typically go behind on a lot with a single-family home. The general plan density is, or the general plan land use designation for the entire property is medium density residential. And I'll show you the general plan map in a moment. The 2019 general plan recently adopted shows this density. The 1993 general plan, which predated it, also showed that same density. So they're not requesting any change in land use policy, any change in zoning. So the zoning matches the general plan. It's MDR, medium density residential. And within that density range that the general plan requires that the site build at, there's a floor and a ceiling on that, if you will. The minimum number of units that can be built on the site is 87, which is the number that they're coming in and proposing to build. Under the general plan, the site would support about 3 times more units, about up to 270, but they're not proposing that. They're coming in at 87. So this is the general plan map. The site is outlined in red. It's adjacent to agriculture, high density residential, a lot of other MDR or medium density residential land as well. So the applications currently, one of those is the draft environmental impact report, which is currently out for public review and which is the subject of tonight's meeting. And then the tentative subdivision map. That's the totality of what the city will be considering early next year when this goes into public hearings at the Planning Commission and City Council. Now, there are future applications that will need to be filed and considered before any development can take place. If this tentative map is approved, they won't be able to build any homes yet. There are several other steps. Those are listed on here. There's an affordable housing agreement that will need to be approved by the City Council, and that's under the city's inclusionary housing ordinance, which generally requires that any new housing project include housing which is affordable to lower income households. There is the design review of the proposed homes. They have not submitted any detailed designs for the homes yet. Again, all they're pursuing at this point is the subdivision itself. And then finally, there's a conditional use permit, which is required under the city zoning code for the multifamily housing that they're proposing on the largest of the lots, lot number 52 on the subdivision. The draft EIR looks at a variety of topics. I'm not going to read all these off on the screen, but it's everything from aesthetics to energy. Some of the more important ones are probably transportation and circulation, or certainly the ones that are going to receive a lot of attention. Utilities and service systems, which includes the issue of water service, but basically a very complete range of topics for the environmental impact report. The document also looks at alternatives to the project and a number of other topics that are required to be examined under state law. The draft EIR, which is lengthy, we understand that, but it's that way in an effort to make sure that all the information is out there, concludes that all of the project's impacts, with one exception, can be reduced to a level of less than significant. That one impact that can't be mitigated or can't be reduced to a level of less than significant is what we call vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. VMT, or vehicle miles traveled, is simply a measure of how far all the cars that basically live in this subdivision will travel on an average day. And that's everything from driving from home to work, driving from home to school, driving home to shopping and back, and so on. It's a measure of how much vehicle travel is being generated by the project. That's a new topic, actually, for CEQA that was imposed by state law just recently. What the state is trying to do is encourage cities to reduce the amount of vehicle travel as part of overall reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, which come partly from vehicles driving on the roadways. But that's the one impact that can't be reduced to a less than significant level, and that is identified as significant unavoidable. Now, that doesn't mean that the EIR recommends adopting the project or approving it or not. The EIR doesn't do that. The EIR does not recommend anything about the project. It simply provides information. And in this case, it has identified that there's a significant impact. And there are methods provided in state law for the city to take action on a project, even if it has significant impacts. A little bit of history about the project. Going back to 2010 was when the first application for this project came into the city. Was accepted as complete in 2011, so it's been around for a while. And earlier CEQA process started soon after that, going between about 2011 and 2016. For various reasons, was not completed. This current process began about 4 years ago in 2017, which brings us up to September 23rd of this year, which was when the draft environmental impact report was released for public review. For a minimum 45-day review period as required by state law, we're actually extending that because 45 days would have ended on a weekend. So we're extending that to the 8th of November. Looking forward to next steps. Once the comment period on the EIR closes on November the 8th, we will look at all those comments with the city's environmental consultant. If you're looking at your screen, you'll see someone named Christine Cronenberg. Christine is with the firm of Dudek. They are also working, as I am, for the city and on behalf of the city. They wrote the EIR, and they will be writing responses to the comments that come in. So that whole process of reviewing those comments, responding to them, and preparing a final EIR for consideration is going to happen through the winter. And then we're looking at the first quarter of next year for public hearings on the EIR and the tentative map. Then, as I mentioned, there are future entitlements, which can either happen next year or later. It's really up to the applicant on when they want to bring those in, assuming that the subdivision map is approved. Those being the affordable housing agreement, which goes to the city council, the design review of the proposed homes, and the conditional use permit for multifamily housing, both of which would come back to this planning commission for approval. So there are many opportunities throughout this entire process for public input. As we're showing on the screen here, the comment period that we're currently in is one of those, and this meeting is certainly an important part of that. In addition to this, I mentioned there will be hearings next year, early in the year, in the first quarter. Those will all be open to the public, and you'll be able to, again, come in front of the Planning Commission or the City Council and express your concerns, ask questions, make comments about the project. So once again, for tonight's meeting, we're trying to focus attention on comments on the draft EIR. What we're looking for are your comments, your concerns that affect the adequacy of the environmental document that we're looking at tonight. Is there any information that's missing? Is there analysis that's not correct? Are there conclusions that you feel are incorrect? Are there typos in the document? We're looking for anything that, any kind of comments like that. So, excuse me, as the chair mentioned, we're not looking tonight for comments on the project itself. There will be hearings at which time that is going to be a more appropriate topic of discussion. I'll also mention that there are a number of different ways to comment. Well, first of all, the EIR is available on the city's website. I've put the web address up here. It's also available if you don't want to go online in printed form at City Hall and at the St. Helena Public Library. The comment deadline is November 8th. You can comment tonight. We certainly encourage you, if you have the ability to comment in writing, either by US mail or via email. That way we're sure that we get your exact comments in the record. We'll be taking notes tonight. As I mentioned, Ms. Cronenberg from Dudek is online, so she'll be just taking notes about the meeting tonight. But if you really want to be certain that your full comments, exactly as you want to express them, are in the record, we encourage you to do that in writing. So, Mr. Chair, staff's recommendation for tonight is that you finish receiving this presentation, open the public hearing, receive comments, close the public hearing, and then if there are any commissioner comments on the draft EIR, would certainly welcome the commission members to provide those. And with that, I will end my presentation, turn my camera back on. And again, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Norris. With that, I will indeed open the public hearing. And this is actually right as we get started is the time for any commissioner who has had ex parte communications to place that on the table so we all know about it. Are there any commissioners who've had ex parte communications over this particular subject? I see no hands going up. So, Secretary Camaro, is there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Yes, we have some hands, and I will start off with Angela Zivkovic. You are unmuted, Angela.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So I've read through the draft environmental impact report, and I'm surprised that so many of the issues that were covered were deemed as mitigated to a level of less than significant. I feel that there are quite a few issues that would in fact have significant impact, and I will go through the list as I see it. I strongly support alternative number 1, which is no project, no build alternative for the following reasons. One, the aesthetics of the east side of the town are inextricably linked with the vineyards, wetlands, and public outdoor space in the designated project area. Every day, hundreds of St. Helena residents access the areas around this site for recreation, as do visitors and tourists to the area. If there were a large housing development erected on the site, it would irreversibly damage the aesthetics of this town as a small agricultural town with historic significance. We would not be able to walk on the walkway through the area, have a view of the hills on either side of the valley, and the natural habitat restoration area. The housing development would also permanently alter the aesthetics of Star Avenue by drastically increasing traffic and congestion in this area. As a direct result of the building work itself and the subsequent increase in traffic and congestion to and from the development by hundreds of new residents, there would also be significant impacts on the air quality, particularly when you look at it as microclimate on the east side of town, and to all of the current residents, as well as wildlife that live in the protected wildlife habitat zone directly adjacent to the development. The impacts on air quality from hundreds of additional vehicles driving to and from these residences, and from the extension of Star Avenue and Adams with the additional cutting over of vehicles from Main Street and Silverado Trail, would have additional significant and cumulative negative impact on air quality. The impacts of the development on water quality and hydrology have also not been adequately evaluated and mitigated in this report. The idea, it seems, is to simply use an agricultural well to supply the water needs of hundreds of residents, and I feel that this is naive and inadequately addressed. We're living in a time of unprecedented water shortages, with climate change projections predicting worsening in this regard over the next several decades, and with clear evidence that wells and underground water sources are simply running out all over California. It is completely irresponsible to propose that the water needs of potentially over 500 residents in this development could possibly be met with an agricultural well as the water source. Next, with regard to land use, it is remarkable that the development in question does not take into account the fact that there's hardly any public open space available in town as it is, much less if the project were to go through. Even chickens in the state of California have humane standards on the amount of minimum access to open space that they can have at about 60 square feet of space. At an equivalence of approximately 30 times body size for an average human, that would mean that every citizen of this community should have the right to a minimum of 1,800 square feet of open space. Currently, the city of St. Helena has only a couple of parks, adding up to about 3 million square feet of open space. And with over 6,000 residents, that means that each St. Helena resident only has about 500 square feet of open space, which is already less than the bare minimum requirement that even poultry has access to. We really can't afford to lose the last bit of open space that we have in this area. Noise and vibration would also increase significantly with the development in the area, and this has not been adequately accounted for with regard to the residents of not just Star Avenue and the adjacent neighborhoods, but also the existing low-income housing development on Hunt Avenue, which would be severely impacted, not just during construction, but also once the development is finished and there's significant traffic and congestion that's increasing in the area. Finally, it's difficult to fathom how the development project could possibly fit in with the goals and aspirations of our community for public services, recreation, and public utilities. As it is, our community is barely able to meet the needs of current residents with regard to basic public services, recreation, and utilities. Everything from schools, water, sewage, garbage would be severely impacted by a construction project that would increase the population of St. Helena by 10% practically overnight. It is difficult to understand how our schools could possibly continue to provide quality teaching to a student body that could grow by 10% from one year to the next. And our current water and sewage treatment facilities are in need of repair and maintenance and are barely able to supply the basic needs of current residents. A substantial amount of—
Ms. Angela Zivkovic, just a reminder that there's a time limit of 4 minutes per public comment. Your 4 minutes are up. If you'd like to wrap up your public comments now, would be a good time.
Okay, I would like to just finish off by saying that I think a major problem is sewage and water. The plan states that the sewage would simply be diverted to existing sewer lines on Star Avenue and Vineyard Valley, and there's already some issues there. We have a bad smell on the corner of Star and Hunt in the fall on a regular basis, and we feel that this would be even more severely impacted by the development. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to voice my opinion.
Thank you. Ms. Camaro, is there a next person? And I would like to remind everybody there is indeed a time limit of 4 minutes. We're trying to stick to that.
Yes, Chair Pons, there is Greg Reynolds from Vineyard Valley who would like to speak. And Greg, you're more than welcome to speak now.
Mr. Reynolds, welcome.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening. I'm Greg Reynolds, 290 Pope Street, St. Helena. I'm the managing partner for Vineyard Valley Mobile Home Park. Thank you once again for an opportunity to speak. There are a myriad of concerns we have about the Hunter project. As our residents understand more about the project, topics of impact are significant and across the board. From levee access and levee maintenance to vista and privacy concerns, the electorate here in VV is not happy. There are so many mitigating circumstances raised in today's current environment around water, fire safety, emergency response, traffic, to name a few, that your job as city planners and perhaps city council members makes it all the more critical that evidence doesn't get ignored. You have a tough job. You need to forecast where a project like this takes the citizens of Vineyard Valley and the greater city of St. Helena. I'll focus on just 3 issues tonight, and we will follow up in writing next week as well. My 3 issues are emergency evacuations, water specific to sewer discharge, and traffic. Vineyard Valley is a retirement community, 55 and older, approximately 218 homes when everyone is home. The park is home to 350 people. Many are retired seniors. After the last 5 years and last year with the glass fire, we've spent more time each year focused on fire suppression, readiness, and safety. This year, primarily in neighborhood reach and resident evacuation in the event of an emergency. After the devastating floods of '86 and '95, the park was transformed with a significant investment in the flood wall project. The design and building of that project attempted to mitigate the floodplain realities with the flood wall, the levee, and holding pond and pumps. The deployment of that significant investment did not include the construction referenced here. Hunter project was not part of that plan and the safety it proposed to deliver. We're very concerned that a safe evacuation and access through the back of the park will disappear with this project. We are concerned that the construction will undermine the levee and overwhelm the Army Corps strategy put in place to protect our 350 residents and their homes. We are concerned about water, as many have commented. As we all engage to participate in phase 2, this concerns us greatly. We will comment in writing specifically about wastewater flows and what appears to be a plan to connect a portion of the Hunter project to Vineyard Valley's wastewater discharge sewer. This is a city sewer that is documented to have significant issues when it does rain. The majority of the Hunter project single-family homes, 46 out of 51, will be connected to the VV sewer, Vineyard Valley sewer. We will be getting most of the sewer flow. Taking into account the multifamily units as well as 75% of the total project discharge is directed our way. Our VV sewer is already overtaxed. This will clearly drown this infrastructure. As in other parts of the city, this is unacceptable and expensive as the city spends and documents every cleanup situation. The traffic data clearly demonstrates significant challenges for our senior contingent. In the DEIR, it is clear from the table the proposed project transportation demand management, TDM, strategies would result in a project VMT to be 15.2% higher than the citywide VMT per capita. The draft EIR concludes and clearly states that the proposal project has a significance and unavoidable impact. Then it is our opinion that the council has an obligation to the citizens of St. Helena to protect their environment, environmental integrity, and vote to deny the acceptance of the draft EIR. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reynolds. Secretary Camaro, please.
Yes, one moment. We have Maria. Maria, you should be unmuted now. You can speak now.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking my comment.
Good evening, ma'am. If you could give us your full name, you don't have to,
Yeah.
but we would appreciate it.
Yes, this is Maria Villegas. I'm at 1166 Meadow Creek Circle.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Well, on the surface, for some, the proposed project appears to be advantageous to the community, but is it? Though the project will increase the number of homes, including affordable housing, additional residents will increase the need for an electrical grid that can supply power for our extreme hot and cold seasons. The draft EIR states the CEMOD uses the 2016 state requirements, however, is compliant with the updated 2019 version. There are increased power outages with our current population. Adding a new subdivision would stress an already struggling power system. I was not able to find added evacuation routes in the event of a fire or flood. This leaves Adams and Star as the only evacuation routes for the additional 87 units. The two streets would also be the evacuation routes for residents on Star, Meadow Creek, Hunt, and spillover from Vineyard Valley. As years have gone by, parked vehicles from surrounding neighborhoods has significantly increased on Hunt, Star, and Meadow Creek. With the current extreme fire danger and longer fire seasons, in the event of an emergency, evacuations will create a dangerous and potentially deadly situation. If residents from surrounding neighborhoods are forced to park farther away from their homes, this would increase foot traffic and vehicle traffic during an emergency evacuation. As we all know, people panic, and the situation could become deadly. The Hunter project would greatly impact increased traffic and a deadly situation more likely. I was born and raised in St. Helena and have seen it grow from a sleepy town to a popular tourist destination. As a child, I remember residents never wanting to live on the east side of town, not because it was the wrong side of the tracks, but because it flooded and it was agricultural. There were prune trees and walnut trees, and yes, there were two wineries. It was Krug and Behringer's. And if the early settlers were standing before you today with the current proposed project, they would ask you, why would you build in a flood zone? And though there is currently a levee to protect the proposed development, the elders would say, respect Mother Nature. When she decides to flood, there's no levee that's going to stop flooding. We need to respect nature and listen to what it's telling us. If the recent fires haven't taught us, we really need to reevaluate our understanding of climate change. This isn't rocket science, this is common sense. When a proposed project is being built in an area never meant for human habitat, it screams this proposed project should not move forward. Lastly, the willingness to build a subdivision over a Native American burial site, the largest discovered in the Napa Valley, should give pause, not only to the developer, but all our elected officials. The site qualifies for both national and state registry as a historical site. 163 human remains were discovered, along with trading deeds believed to be from Spain. The DEIR recognized there is potential for more artifacts to be uncovered, and under AB 52, the Native American tribe affiliated with the artifacts and/or human remains are to be notified. The WAPO tribal chairman was not listed in the DEIR as being notified. The artifacts discovered at the project site are part of St. Helena's history. It's part of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Camaro.
Yes, we have Patrick Band. Patrick should be able to speak now.
Thank you very much. Patrick Band, Executive Director of the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. Want to provide some general comments this evening in advance of a formal comment letter that we'll be submitting within the next week. We would also like to request an extension of the EIR or DEIR comment deadline by an additional 30 to 45 days, given the number of significant issues that we've identified as well as other community members are bringing up this evening. Specific to the Bicycle Coalition, we have pretty significant concerns regarding the lack of adequacy of the bicycle and pedestrian facilities that are proposed within this project, despite, as the consultant has referenced, the significant and unavoidable impacts primarily from VMT as a result of project build-out. Notably, the DEIR fails to acknowledge the city's own 2019 adopted bicycle plan, which would call for Class 1 multi-use facilities on Adams as well as Star. Those facilities would provide a safe, separated opportunity for bicyclists and pedestrians to travel to and from the project location to a number of local destinations, including grocery stores, shopping, schools nearby. And that connectivity would only be leveraged further by the planned improvements for the Napa Valley Vine Trail, which is also likely to include a section of Adams. Again, this project is very walkable and bikeable if those project facilities are included, which they are not currently. We, again, will be providing a full comment letter, but suffice to say, we are very disappointed that the DIR is basing a number of their transportation assumptions on either outdated or faulty plans, and would like to request an extension of the comment period by an additional 30 to 45 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to say one thing here right now. The commission is not empowered to make any sort of decision on extending the review time for this EIR. That's beyond our purview. That would come out of either senior city staff or the city council itself. We have no power to do that. So if there's anyone else who is online waiting to request that, we are not the venue that can act on any such request. Onward. Ms. Camaro, is there another person who wishes to speak?
Yes, we have Tracy McBride who would like to speak. And you have 4 minutes, Tracy.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. Thank you to those who have spoken, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to say that I feel this is a design of the past, and I'm not quite understanding the city staff person who said tonight is about comments on the EIR, but not on the project. I do support more housing, more diversity in St. Helena and property owner rights, but I strongly feel the proposal for 87 units needs to take into consideration energy efficiency, housing equity, working to achieve net zero impact on the environment and resource consumption. Constructing separate and unequal low to moderate income housing will forever mark those units as affordable units, lesser quality, and be easily identified as the low income section. The affordable housing should look and feel very similar to all the homes developed. I can accept they may be smaller and have smaller yards, but why do they need to look different? I have an issue with the east side versus the west side of St. Helena. There are no similar big developments in the heart of the so-called west side or perimeter of the west side. You commissioners need to tip the scales to help the developers build homes that attract the next generation of residents to even the score between the east side and the west side. I believe there should be public open space, as mentioned in the EIR, of at least 1 acre. As commissioners, you know our per capita per public parks, and where do we stand? Just as the Signorelli development created Jacob Miley Park, which is much bigger than 1 acre, don't you feel creating public open space is the right thing to do for our community and the new residents who will live here? I believe this park should connect to a walking path to the Napa River. This proposal should allow for owned affordable housing, which should be regulated in the same way, but not a rental. The affordable housing in St. Helena is only rentals. This eliminates home ownership, a very important component of our society. Owners will not be able to achieve the same appreciation as the free market, but they will be able to enjoy home ownership benefits. In my opinion, at least 50% of the moderate and below income housing should be owned. There are Bay Area cities that implement owned affordable housing. The new construction should be fire retardant with underground utilities, even if it's not in a high fire natural hazard zone. Anyone who's lived next to a fire knows it can sweep through any neighborhood. Has the city considered requesting the project be 100% electric, no natural gas for both environmental and fire hazard reasons? This project absolutely has an impact on an evacuation plan with possibly hundreds more cars needing to evacuate. We absolutely need another connection to the Silverado Trail other than Deer Park, the historic Pratt or Pope bridges. Our stone bridges are not seismically sound. It's time to wake up to what we need to do for efficient, safe traffic flow. We are living on borrowed time with the old bridges, and we need to alleviate the weight of traffic on Hunt and Pope. Then we get to the clincher. Would the proposed project have sufficient water supplies available to serve the project and reasonably foreseeable future development during normal dry and multiple dry years? Quote, this is a less than significant impact, unquote. Come on, really? Retrofitting toilets is something that was done 20 to 40 years ago. This will not make the project water neutral. The only thing that will make this project water neutral is investment in infrastructure to get more water for the whole city. The city can ask or incentivize the developer to do this. In summary, I support development and property owner rights, but I do not support taking a step backwards to gain not enough. I'm talking about housing equity, forward thinking, balance east side and west side, build a new bridge, water, water, water. And I also think that the EIR comment period should be extended, and I'm making this comment out loud to the city staff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Elizabeth Alderman. You can speak now.
Hi, hello. I guess in contrast to several people who have spoken tonight, we are actually very new to town. We moved here in February, and we are probably the most impacted by the potential construction living at the corner of Hunt and Star. There's a few things I would like to say. We have 2 small children who ride the bus every morning. We stand out, at the corner of Hunt and Star. And every single morning, I have to stand in the crosswalk of Hunt and Star to prevent cars from driving past the bus and putting children in peril. The stop sign at our intersection is faded almost to not being recognizable and has not been replaced. So I think, to sum up, I have no confidence that there is the ability to safely manage a new inflow of hundreds of cars with the children that ride that bus every single day. The other thing I'd like to point out is there is a major parking issue in our neighborhood. I have been in contact with the manager of Hunts Grove. My children are friends with kids in the community. You know, we live right next to them. Those apartments right now have many more people living in them because of the affordable housing crisis, and it's trickling over into a parking situation. What I have not seen is any plan from the city to accommodate the existing traffic problems and parking problems we have right now, as well as what we will do when there is an additional 80 units of housing. I would also like to point out that from an equity perspective, I would much rather see another Hunts Grove in the community where we give affordable housing to people who truly need it and who truly want to contribute and work in the community, rather than potentially opening up multiple units of housing to second homeowners who do not live here. There are too many people that need housing in this community to make that even a possible option, that these would turn into Picasso homes or anything like that. And echoing what other commenters have said, there is not enough time to react to this environmental impact review. I know for a fact that many people in the Hunts Grove community have not read it, and they are majorly impacted by this development. So I would like to also echo the sentiment as well.
Thank you, Ms. Alderman.
Yes, we have Nancy Durbin who would like to speak. You can speak now.
Good evening again. Ditto to all the other speakers' concerns. I really thought a lot about this, and I don't know how it would be physically possible to undertake that type of a development in that particular location without serious degradation to the flora and fauna in the area. It's adjacent to a conservation easement, agricultural lands, and publicly accessed property that the city owns. And I just don't see how you could go in there and do that kind of construction without devastating the habitat of wildlife and plants and shrubs and other things that are trying to thrive and that we've been working towards trying to bring back, actually. So there's an environmental effort underway now to try and restore habitat and preserve and even enhance it. And this kind of a project just simply is not compatible. And beyond the plants and animals and whatnot, I think as a society, if we don't take seriously what sacred ground actually means and honor it, we're going down a path that even if fiscally a project is successful, there are other ramifications that aren't measured by dollars that are going to be very detrimental to our community, to the psyche of our community. So I think we need sometimes to think beyond just the hard numbers and the calculations and whatnot. And then lastly, I'd like to remind you guys, I think you all know this, but possibly you don't, that St. Helena Housing Coalition and Our Town St. Helena have some significant affordable housing projects that they're trying to bring forward. And at some point, if we're not already there, there just isn't enough water. We're struggling with water now. We have hundreds of affordable housing units the government has asked us to provide. We have 2 nonprofit agencies working to that end. I think the priority should be for the developments that address mandated needs that are not just mandated, but that are demonstrated to us every single day, with literally thousands of people commuting to jobs, many of them service workers, or even city employees that cannot afford to live here. So I don't even know if in this process it's possible for you guys to look at the bigger picture and recognize at some point we will have built out all that we can given our resources. And I don't think it's appropriate to bypass the affordable efforts that are being made in favor of something like this that would just be so irrevocably harmful on so many different levels. Thank you for giving the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. Durbin.
And at the moment, I do not see any more hands raised. I could give it a few seconds to see if anybody raises their hand. Okay, we have Marina Lavanino. Apologize if I messed that up. You can speak now.
Great, thank you. You did very well with that. Lavanino, Marina Lavanino. I'm curious, I actually live in Vineyard Valley and look out on the side of this every day. My office looks out on the property. And I see so many people utilizing this as a recreation area. I am going through the DEIR carefully, and there's a lot of really interesting information there. So I would encourage people to read it carefully and not just briefly, because there's a lot of detail. But I'm wondering if there has been any survey of the people who use this, the walking trail, because they don't just stick to the berm, they do a loop around the property. And depending on the time of day and the fog in the area or the sunshine, people use this area in many different ways. And it's certainly not just the Vineyard Valley residents or the people from Hunts Grove. I'd be curious, and I think it's very relevant, if there could be a survey of who uses the property and how fully. It would definitely be very different if they were walking along a set of homes rather than in between a vineyard and a field. I think there's a recreational usage that people are experiencing right now that if we lose that, we don't have another place in St. Helena that provides that kind of access and usage. So I know you can't answer this right now, but I think that kind of survey would be really important. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Ben Alderman. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Mr. Alderman.
Thank you. I was just wondering, taking into account recent weather events, the closing of thoroughways and how that's going to have an impact that we've seen already on the main street. Once Star is connected, that would then likely drive a lot of that traffic down Star and over. So when we're looking at traffic patterns, how is there the opportunity to look at traffic patterns now? I don't remember the exact date, I'm sorry, the traffic patterns were taken. So we can look at the impact of a closing of Silverado Trail and what the likely impacts that would be on the thoroughfare through Star. Because as we know, this development has no access to Silverado from either side if there was a closure. So all of that is then likely to be driven down, not the main street, but along Star. We know traffic is already an issue as part of the environmental impact study. Recent events suggest to me it would actually be a much greater issue than what's been put in to the studies so far.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman. Ms. Camaro?
I do not see any other hands raised at the moment, Chair Pont.
All right. Well, let's close the public hearing for now, and we will check before we go on. But at this point, this would be the opportunity for planning commissioners to comment on the draft EIR. If there are any comments from the planning commission. Any commissioner who wishes to throw their oar in the water on this subject this evening? I do not see any hands, but I will remind, Vice Chair Hale, please.
Yeah, I'm going to try to not get too deep in the weeds on the my comments, but I would just encourage everybody out there to take the available time and the time it's going to take actually to read through some of this, because there's a mountain of data that's in this. And I think what I would suggest that it's important to understand is that what we're trying to, the comment process here about the EIR, the draft EIR, is what we're trying to form is a more perfect tool to analyze this project. It's, I think, keeping your comments relevant to that, to perfecting that tool will be really most useful. And it's I know it's a little it's dense, and it's difficult to kind of parse out the different pieces of this and the process of it. But I think if we can do that, this will be a more productive, and it'll give us the most accurate kind of read on this. So I think if you can kind of push to perfect the data, point out where pieces are missing, and if there's pieces that you feel are inaccurate, of course, do that too. That would be the most productive thing. And I'll leave it there.
Any other commissioner care to comment on the draft EIR at this point? I do not see any hands raised. So with that, Ms. Gamero, has anyone come online last couple of minutes?
I do not see any other hands raised, Chair Pont.
Okay. In which case, I will.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
perhaps the clerk could just mention the number of participants who are on the call at this time. It has gone up.
You're correct.
The number of participants is 32.
32. Okay, we're at 25.
And I do see a hand that just raised.
Okay.
We have Mr. Randy Husong, who would like to speak. Go ahead.
That's correct. Great pronunciation. My last name. Thank you very much. To have a new resident. I'm concerned about the water. I mean, everything else is going to be parsed out and mitigated. Traffic and so forth is going to be heavily impacted. I read through the entire report. I cannot understand how retrofitting some toilets is going to make the water usage neutral. Along with the sewer, we've got some serious problems with the water in Bell Canyon. We're not doing anything to increase that to an adequate amount. And I beg any person in the town of St. Helena to say that 65 gallons a day or a 2-minute shower is the luxury that you expect for the tax base that we're paying for. So this is a significant impact, the water usage that is not being addressed in the EIR. And I beg to differ that it's not an impact, and that the well is going to produce some portion of all the landscaping, and that retrofitting 300 toilets is going to make this a water neutral situation when you can't provide enough water for the residents that are already paying for it. It's absurd. So this needs to be addressed in a more significant way and more detailed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Husson.
We have Michael Mills next. You can speak now, Mr. Mills.
Thank you. Commissioner Hale has pointed out that this document is, I think his words were, dense. And it seems to have encouraged us all to read it carefully. And there was a request earlier from 2 people that the comment period, which is remarkably brief, I think per page, it's a really very minimal comment period. There was a suggestion that the comment period be extended. The chair has said that the commission does not have the power to do that, but suggested that the staff has that power. Is that correct?
Not, well, certain members of city staff have that power. But basically it falls to the city council to do so, or to certain members of upper management of the city acting in their place.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you identify specifically how we can submit that request. I think that would be fair to those who've made the request, that you give us the direction on how to do that.
You have made the request now. We just can't act on it. It's beyond our purview to act on it.
Well, is the commission then transmitting that request to the appropriate authorities on behalf of those who have asked?
We will be transmitting that request indeed.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Mills?
No, thank you very much.
Very good, thank you.
Next, we have, excuse me, Maureen 436. Maureen, if you could state your last name, you don't have to, but it would be great if you could do that for the record. You can speak now.
Hi, I'm Maureen Lewandowski. I live off of Fawn Park here in St. Helena. And I just feel like the most important thing of this whole scenario is definitely the water. I would have to agree with Randy Husson that that is probably the biggest issue here. We are living in a time when there is an unprecedented amount of no water, and we need to be addressing that more than anything in this whole project. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other hands up at the moment, Chair Pont.
No hands at the moment. All right.
Chair Pont, if I may
Yes.
respond and articulate for our public again, I know we spoke a little bit about what the process looks like going forward, and I did hear the request to extend the comment period. What I want the public to understand is that while the formal comment period on the EIR closes on the 8th, so staff can prepare detailed responses through the final EIR, there actually will still remain an open period to still comment on the project and the EIR all the way up into the final hearing going to the city council, which is still months away. So, and we had done a news release about this. So how we would endeavor to respond to those comments would be through the staff report at those respective public hearings. So I want to, not have a sense of alarm that just because they don't get their comments in by the 8th that they're going to be dismissed. That is not the intent at all. CEQA is a public process. The purpose of the EIR is just to disclose what are the impacts, and there are statutory timeframes along that process of where we receive additional input and feedback. So I hope that helps clarify to the public that they are still welcome to submit comments on the EIR post the 8th, but it's just going to be a slightly different process of what it looks like of how those comments are addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Director DeRosa. All right, Ms. Gamero, one last time. Anybody who wishes to speak?
No additional hands are up, Chair Pont.
All right. I'm gonna, in which case, close the public hearing. And since we've already requested comments from the planning commissioners, unless there's anyone else on the planning commission who wishes to address this item, I don't see any hands. We will move on, which takes us to item 6, new business. We have none. Item 7, scheduled matters. We have none. Item 8, department reports. Director DeRosa, do we have anything for us tonight?
No formal report, but just to let you know that our next meeting will be canceled in November, but we are looking to have a meeting, the first meeting in December on the 7th. So that would be our next scheduled meeting.
Thank you. Agenda forecast, as always, it's on the city website, a list of current projects that are in process. And this is also the opportunity for any commissioner to request an item on a future agenda. Is there any commissioner who would like to bring up an item forward for discussion or consideration on a future agenda? Once again, seeing none. That brings us to what was Lester's favorite item, adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.